Let's talk about turning 40 a birthday that, today, comes with a mix of excitement, dread, and a lot of cake. In our world, it's a milestone. There are parties, jokes about being over the hill, and maybe even a shiny new car or a spontaneous trip to Tuscany to mark the occasion. But in the Middle Ages, 40 wasn't the new 30. It was, quite frankly, the new dead. Most people never made it that far. If you woke up on your 40th birthday, you were more shocked than celebratory. It was a rare and almost suspicious achievement. There were no parties, no getaways, and certainly no midlife crisis purchases. Just another day dodging death by disease, famine, or the occasional angry wild boar lurking near the village. Reaching 40 was a statistical miracle, not a reason for balloons or a Facebook post. People might even stare at you in awe, as if you'd outwitted fate itself. Imagine Cuthbert, our medieval peasant. His life was one long crisis. No time for existential dread, just the daily grind of survival. He wasn't worried about wrinkles or hair loss. He was worried about surviving the winter, finding enough to eat, and not having to boil his shoes for soup. Age categories were simple. You were a child, a worker, or, if you were lucky or unlucky enough, old. At 40, you were firmly in the old category, even if you still had work to do and mouths to feed. Most of your friends weren't off chasing new careers or moving to distant cities. They were gone, claimed by toothaches, fevers, or tragic farm accidents. There were no celebratory pints at the tavern, just a quiet, private relief that you'd made it through another year against all odds. Boasting about your age was tempting fate, and fate in the Middle Ages had a particularly dark sense of humor. You kept your achievements to yourself, so you kept your head down, kept working, and hoped the next winter didn't finish you off. Every sunrise was a small victory. Turning 40 wasn't a party. It was a private, hard-won victory lap, if you dared to take one, and if you had the strength left to do so. You've probably heard that the average life expectancy in medieval times was just 35 years, right? It's a number that gets tossed around a lot, painting a picture of a world where people barely made it out of their 20s. It sounds incredibly grim, almost hopeless, but that number is actually pretty misleading if you look closer. The real danger zone was childhood. Survive those early, perilous years, and suddenly your odds of reaching a ripe old age improved dramatically. The streets were full of children, but not all would make it. High infant and child mortality rates dragged the average down, not a wave of funerals for people in their mid-30s. Many never made it past their first few years. If you managed to reach 40, you'd already dodged disease, famine, and war. You weren't just lucky. You were a survivor, a testament to resilience, not some statistical outlier. Think of it like beating the hardest level in a video game. Childhood was brutal, full of hidden traps and sudden ends. But if you cleared it, you'd unlocked the main game of life. A 40-year-old was a legend in their own right, someone who knew which mushrooms wouldn't kill you, how to avoid the tax collector, and how to keep a family alive through lean times. Old people did exist, and when you met one, you knew they were tough as nails. They'd seen decades of hardship and survived it all. Surviving to 40 was a quiet personal victory, a badge of honor earned through grit, not just a statistical fluke. By then, you'd seen off plagues, endured famines, and maybe even survived a war or two. Every scar told a story. The world wasn't just full of the young, it was full of survivors, each one carrying the weight of their experiences and the wisdom that came with them. And if you were one of those rare survivors, you kept it low-key. In a world where fate could turn at any moment, you never tempted it by boasting. Fate, after all, was always listening. Turning 40 today means a few aches, maybe some reading glasses, and the occasional complaint about a sore back after a long day at work. Most of us expect to be active, maybe even hitting the gym or going for a jog, and we still have decades of life ahead. But in the Middle Ages, reaching 40 was a very different story. Your body was already a wreck, battered by years of relentless hardship. Cuthbert's back was ruined from decades of back-breaking labor. No ergonomic chairs, no rest days, just endless fields to plow and harvest season after season. His knees were shot, his hands twisted and gnarled from constant work, and his teeth, mostly gone, the rest brown, cracked, and painfully sensitive to the cold. There were no painkillers, just rough ale to dull the pain. Or if things got really bad, the blacksmith's pliers for a toothache. A terrifying last resort. Arthritis set in early, and every joint ached from years of cold, damp living conditions and a lifetime of malnutrition. Winters were especially brutal, with little warmth or comfort. Folk remedies like goose fat or herbal pouches offered little real relief, but people clung to them, hoping for a bit of comfort. A 40-year-old peasant looked 70 by today's standards, weathered, stooped, and utterly exhausted, with every movement a reminder of a hard life. Scars, chronic pain, and missing teeth weren't just common. They were badges of survival, proof you'd made it this far. The body endured, but every year took its toll, and the price was steep. Every morning was a battle just to get moving, muscles stiff and joints creaking, but there was no choice but to keep going. You were tough, hardened by necessity, but you were falling apart, piece by piece. Survival was written in every line, every scar, every ache that never quite went away. In short, 40 was old, and you felt every single year of it deep in your bones and written across your face. Modern worries about superbugs? In the Middle Ages, any bug could kill you. A splinter or cut could mean infection, gangrene, and death. No antibiotics, no antiseptics. Doctors were barber surgeons, as likely to cut your hair as your arm. Treatments, bloodletting, leeches, animal dung poultices, and even drilling holes in your skull for headaches. If you were 40 and sick, you avoided the doctor and hoped the village wise woman's herbs worked. Anything serious, appendicitis, pneumonia, was usually fatal. Surviving to 40 meant you'd been lucky enough to never need a doctor. In medicine, ignorance was rarely bliss, but sometimes it was survival. So, you've made it to 40. Are you a respected elder? Sort of. You were valued for your survival skills, not your age. Your job: teach the young how to survive, what to eat, how to fix things, how to spot a bad winter. Wisdom was practical, not philosophical. Your knowledge was the village's real inheritance. But you weren't revered. You were a resource, expected to work or teach until you couldn't. Society saw you as useful, but also as someone on the way out. You were a living reminder of mortality, not a cherished sage. Authority came with experience, not comfort. You trained the next generation, knowing your own time was short. You were respected for resilience, but not coddled. A teacher and a warning all in one. It was a strange, bittersweet status. Retirement? Not in the Middle Ages. You worked until you dropped. No pensions, no rest, just endless labor. At 40, you were only halfway through a lifetime of toil. Life got harder as you aged, not easier. The Lord still wanted his crops. Winter was still brutal, and your body kept breaking down. Survival meant pushing through pain, because stopping meant starvation. Living to 60 or 70 was rare, and often meant decades of pain and loss. Long life was more about not dying than truly living. So next time you complain about turning 40, remember Cuthbert, enjoy your comforts. Because the alternative is dying in a muddy field, and nobody wants that.